Choosing Chaos, Solo Motherhood by Choice, the podcast for women who are done waiting for the one and ready to become the parent on their own damn terms. We're talking fertility, pregnancy, emotional chaos, and the village that it takes to raise a kid. Sometimes you're crying in the bathtub. Sometimes you're crying because your toddler bit you. And sometimes you cry because you chose all of this. Welcome to Motherhood, solo style. Let's get into it. Welcome back to Choosing Chaos Solo Motherhood by Choice. I am your host, Laura. Today's episode is about reinvention, family, and the deep drive, like a match point you can't let go of, to become a mom. We are joined by Kathleen, who became a single mom by choice in the year 2000 after spending years in sports. At the time, when the path to motherhood looked very different than it does today, Kathleen made a life-changing decision, one built on hope, determination, and unwavering love of her family. Long before apps, online profiles, and digital matching, the process of choosing a sperm donor looked a little bit more like flipping through a JCPenney catalog that arrived in the mail. Kathleen takes us back to those early days, sharing what it looked like to navigate motherhood on her own terms more than 2 decades ago, and how dramatically the experience has changed over time. At the center of the story is her son, Bogue, the greatest joy of her life. This conversation is nostalgic, heartfelt, and fun. Here's Kathleen. Kathleen, your story is extraordinary, from competing on the world's biggest tennis stages to becoming a nurse and ultimately making the bold decision to become a single mom by choice 25 years ago. Is that right? 25 years ago?
Yes, he'll be 26 in July.
I can't believe it. Wow.
Yeah, I know.
In today's conversation, I'd love to walk through all those chapters with you and explore what connects them all.
Okay.
So let's start back in the beginning. You were ranked number 48 in the world and played all the majors, Wimbledon, the US Open, and so much more, which is something that most athletes only ever dream of. When you think back to that time, what stands out to you the most about competing at that level?
Oh gosh. Well, my dad was my coach. He was a teaching tennis pro at a country club, and he started all of my siblings and I started playing when we were young. I was the only one that took it to a different level and seriously, but he was a big impact on how I did and how I played, and having his support along with the rest of my family, because when you do something like that and in that much seriousness of having to play, and it affects the whole family. So they were instrumental in letting me do as well as I did. And it was a great experience. I only dreamed about doing it at that level when I was young, and to actually end up doing it at that level and playing all over the world was like a dream come true.
I can imagine. With the Olympics being on now, I almost feel like it's just so remarkable to watch the talent that each of these individuals have, and then also all the work and dedication that goes into getting to that stage. And I know that you said that did you qualify, or you almost qualified for the Olympics?
No, the Olympics didn't have tennis back then, or they were just starting to. So that was something that was really not on my radar. And I don't know if I would have qualified, because they just took like the top 10 to 20 players, and I was not as high as ranked as that. But it was fairly new at that point, because when I played, it was back in the early 80s. So they didn't really, tennis was not a big sport in the Olympics at that time.
Yeah, like it is now.
Yeah.
So eventually you sort of stepped away from the professional tennis, as you say, and then you transitioned your career more into nursing. What was that transition like for you to go from one extreme, which was mostly athletics, to then focusing on patient care?
Yes, well, that was a big change. Both my younger sister and my mother were nurses, so I had always been intrigued about that. I knew that I wanted to work with children. As an athlete, you have to be very, very selfish, and think of only yourself. You're the main character in everything. So I wanted to do something where I could give back and care for other people. And I always loved working with children. I tried as a school teacher for 1 year, and that's about as long as I could handle that. You don't make as much money as a teacher,
Yeah.
unfortunately. And so I needed to do something as a single person where I could really afford to live on my own and do things without having to, worry about finances. And nursing was a little bit better than teaching. So I knew I could still work with children. And I never did any kind of adult care as a nurse. So I started out right from the beginning working with pediatrics and then eventually going into neonatal intensive care.
Which is tough. I have volunteered as a baby holder in a hospital several years ago, and it is insanely difficult to hear some of those conversations when the nurses are giving their rounds. Oh,
Yes.
your heart has to be like so big, and the wave of emotions that you have to feel on any given day with the care of children, especially in the NICU PICU,
Yes.
because it's not an easy place to be at all.
Right, right. And so because my first degree, I did graduate when I was playing tennis and going on to the pro circuit. And that was a degree in journalism and public relations. I had to go back to school, and this was when I was about 30, and get my nursing degree. I said to my mom, who was a nurse at the time, I'm just going to go to community college because that way I can pay for it. It's not as expensive. And she says, oh, no, you can't do that. And I said, why? And she says, you need to get your bachelor's because that's the way that the world is going, that they're going to start demanding that people have their bachelor's to work in the hospitals. And I was so glad that I listened to her because it
Yeah.
is now most hospitals won't hire people unless they have their bachelor's. I went back to University of Virginia and got my bachelor's in nursing. When I finished, I was about 32.
And then now it's like you need your master's to get a job at anywhere, and next it'll be your PhD, and then
Right,
what after that?
right.
So
Exactly.
you were established, you reinvented yourself, you went from the elite athlete to the healthcare professional, and then at 37, you decided that you wanted to make another life change, and that was to become a single mom by choice. What
Yes.
was happening internally that made you feel empowered to take those steps of doing it on your own?
Well, as a young person, I always wanted to be a mom. And when I was working in this one hospital in Richmond, I had come in contact with a nurse that had had her twin boys doing it single mom by choice. And I was in my mid 30s and I talked to her and I was like, how did you do that? And so this was back in the early 90s, and she told me about it and that she'd found a donor. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. And I said I could see myself doing that, just because I had not found that special person. Of course, we all want to have the white picket fence and a
The
husband
dream.
or a partner and get married and have children the normal regular way, but I could see that wasn't going my way as the older I got. And I thought, I can do this on my own, and why not? And I really wanted to be a mom, and I really wanted to have a child, and that was more important. I did not want to find somebody or date somebody and then kind of just like trick them or get pregnant by them when I wasn't with them or we weren't in a serious relationship. I didn't think that was fair, to
Right.
the person or to the child if I ended up getting pregnant. So I said, this way I won't have anybody that I feel obligated to or to be a part of the child's life if that ended up happening.
Right.
I felt it
Yeah.
was safer to do it on your own and just rely on helping having people in your family to help you because it is hard to do it by yourself.
It is, and we're definitely going to get into much more of that. But, it's amazing that you had met somebody who helped inspire that in you and empower you to make that decision in the 90s when it wasn't really talked about as much as it is now. And I mean, it's still something that people judge nowadays, but in the 90s, I mean, it had to be so much different from where we have come over the last 25, 26 years. So take me back to the early 2000s. What did that process look like
Oh
when it came
gosh,
to picking out the sperm
I
and doing
know.
all of the appointments and the blood work and the IUI and all of the
Oh,
things
so
without
different.
technology the way it is now?
Yeah, it's so different because, God, I remember back in like I started when I was about 37, and I'm a small person. My doctors were like, you need to gain weight, and it was like 1997, 98, and it was like you didn't have as much internet, you don't have the cell phone technology that you have now. Nothing. I went to my fertility specialist, and I was like, how do I do this? And it was like, okay, so you had to right away they had to contact the sperm bank, and then they have to send you all the information on pieces of paper. It's not like I could look it up on the internet on my computer or anything. We had dial-up computer back then, and
Yeah,
it was so archaic to compare what it's like now. And
right.
so we would get mimeographed pieces of paper with list of the donors, all their characteristics and different information that they were allowed to give us. And we would sit at the kitchen table. My sister and I would sit at the kitchen table and look over all the different options and to try to figure out who was a good, because you have to pay for the sperm, so you want to pick out what you think is good match for yourself and the
Hmm.
things that were important to you. The things that were important to me was education, and I was like, I think they should be athletic, and I wanted them to be fairly tall. That was something that I liked. And
Sounds like me.
yeah. So it's just on your preference as far as that is concerned. It was funny because the donor that I ended up getting pregnant with, my son played soccer in college and all growing up, and now he's a soccer coach. He was a soccer player and played for a Division 1 school. I think it's kind of ironic that that ended up
Yeah,
happening, because I tried to get
yeah.
him interested in tennis, but he wasn't having it.
He's like,
So
no thanks.
he went to
Yeah,
the soccer route. But yeah, it's the technology and everything, that the way things are now as far as appointments and all that. So much has grown, and so much
yeah,
technology has come into play that has enabled women to do more things. I was fortunate enough that I had my own eggs, and thank God one of them worked, whereas some women don't have that option. They have to use
right.
donor eggs as well as donor sperm. So at least
Yeah.
half of him is me, from me.
It's funny you talk about having all the papers of the donors, and I think of like a J.C. Penney catalog from
Hmm.
back in the day where it provides you like all their characteristics and then some of their other personality traits. Did it have images too back then? Like
No, they
they're
didn't have images, but they did say if you ended up getting pregnant, they could send you more medical background information on the donor's parents, which I
yeah.
did get. And then also, I used California Cryo Bank, and they said they would send us back then we had cassette tapes.
Yeah.
So I feel
So you
really
put it on
old
your
now.
headphones.
I feel really old because I was 39 when he was born. So I'm 64. And cassette tapes was how we had Walkmans, and
Yep.
that they sent us a cassette tape of an interview so that I heard his voice, and they asked him certain questions, and they sent that tape and I listened to it. He wanted to remain anonymous. My son has shown no interest in contacting, or because they can contact after they're 18 to see if the person would be willing to reach out, even though they've always said they wanted to be anonymous. But we have not
Right.
gone that route at all.
Hearing you say some of those things, like especially looking for the care donor, and I was like, well, I'm short, so he has to be tall. And then like other things you have to worry about now are like CMV status, which I'm not sure if you had to
Yes.
worry about that then.
Yeah.
And then my blood type, I tried to find like somebody who would be compatible with that. They ended
Right.
up not being, so I had to get the Rogam shot throughout my pregnancy. So yeah, it's crazy how things have changed. And then to hear you say like not until you got pregnant did you get the genetics of the family, because
Right.
that's things you can look up now. You can look up their images. I
Yeah.
think I could hear some of the recordings of the men in certain banks. So it's kind of like, so it's crazy to see how far we've come
I
from
know. I know.
then until now.
You
Yeah.
you get a lot more information.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, I probably told you this, but my both my parents are Irish. I'm about 90 some percent Irish. The donor was Italian and his mother was Swiss. So I wasn't sure what, how my son was going to come out. Plus, I didn't know I was having a boy. I waited to have a surprise delivery. And he came out with bright red hair. He definitely got the Irish side from me, and
Yeah.
which we thought was funny because I looked at my parents after he was born and I was like, do we have any red hair on our any side of the family? And my dad was like, oh yeah, I've got a bunch of red hair. My great grandmother has red hair, and then another aunt had red hair. And my son, to this day, almost 26, he has bright red hair.
My gosh. Which does he blue eyes too? Because I feel like
Yes.
they go hand in hand.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So
yeah.
25 years ago, as a single mom by choice, so it wasn't really that common. How did you feel like society responded to your decision when you started to talk about it throughout your pregnancy?
Well, I was a little bit, the girls at work knew that I was trying this. I waited a while to tell my parents. My parents are lovely, and they're both still alive today, 88 and 89, still going strong. They are strict, devout Irish Catholics. So I was a
They have
little bit
opinions.
nervous about their reaction and how they would feel, because I told them before I even started, I said, I might end up having a child on my own. And my mom looked at me, she goes, oh, well, I could see you adopting. And I was like, that's not really fair, Mom. I go, I want to experience the whole pregnancy. I want the baby to be a part of me if I can. I understand
Right.
if you can't, and that's the route that people go. But I want to do this if I can. And I said, that's not fair that you say that because you've had 4 of your own children. And
Mhm.
she says, okay. And so I waited a while until I was almost 15 weeks pregnant before I told them. And when I did tell them, I stopped by their house and I said, I have something to tell you. And I told them, and they both started crying. They were like, oh
Oh,
my gosh. And they were like, we set aside this money for you for a possible wedding one day, which never happened. Never happened at
well,
that
it did,
point.
but we'll get to that. Yeah.
Yeah. But we want you to have that so you can, because I was still living in an apartment. And I said,
Yeah.
we want you to have that so that you can put a down payment on a house, which I
Oh,
did,
so
which I thought
sweet.
that was very
Oh,
generous and very,
yeah.
very, very nice of them to do.
Oh, so they really opened up to the
Yes. Oh my
idea
gosh.
despite
And
the
they've been there since
concerns.
day
Yeah.
one. I came home after having him to their house to stay with them for 2 weeks. We live in the same town in Richmond. And when I said, it's been 2 weeks, I think my son, Bogue, his name is Bogue, I said, I think we're going to go back to our house. We've got to start our life now. And my dad started crying. He's like, no, you can't leave. He was still working at that time, and he would come home and the first thing he would go into the room and get Bogue. And
Oh.
yeah, so they didn't want me to leave. I said, yeah, we have to start our life on our own now. We love that you helped us, but yeah, it was
You
there.
can come visit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they've been very instrumental. They've helped me a lot.
Well, it sounds like you had a really amazing village between
Yes.
your siblings, your parents, the
Right.
people at work. Was there
Yes.
anybody outside of that you had
No, it was
there to
mostly
support you?
both my sisters, because I work night shift, so which is even more difficult. They would
Yeah.
keep him at night, or my parents were keep him at night, and I had 2 girls that also volunteered to keep him at night.
Oh.
They were my village because I couldn't have done it without them.
It really means a lot when you
Yeah.
have the people there who are able to support you through that because it's not easy raising a little one at all, especially in those toddler times.
Yes, exactly. And that's probably how old your son is right now, right?
Yeah, we're 17 months,
Oh
so
gosh.
we've had our struggles, especially with the snowstorms and
Oh,
all
I
the sickness
know.
and everything.
It's been
Yeah,
horrible.
it has been hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you built this life intentionally, but of course, life evolves, as
Yes.
we know. At what point did you, throughout your son's early years, did you start to decide, okay, you know what, I might be ready for dating?
Yes. Well, I think I wanted to wait at least a year before I even went out. And then it was almost 2 years before I started dating and was open to it. I felt like there wasn't as much pressure now because I had had my child, and every time I
Right.
went out, I wasn't looking at, oh, is that
Can
person
we
the
get
one?
married tomorrow?
Yeah, is that person the one? Can we get married tomorrow because I'm already 38 or 39 years old? That pressure left, but in hindsight, I think I didn't really need to date. I think sometimes I felt pressure because of my parents, think that you should have it all, have the white picket fence in the family and everything like that. Even though they were very
Mhm.
supportive of, me pregnancy and having a child how I did, I still think they thought, oh, well, she still needs a husband or a
Yeah.
partner. I tried not to listen to that. And then I think I put pressure on myself to find somebody when I think I would have been just perfectly fine being on my own. But I did
Yeah.
meet somebody, and
You ended up getting married to that individual. But before we jump into that, it is so crazy to me at times to think of our parents want the best for us, right?
right,
And they think the best for us means that we have to have a significant other who, in any way, shape, or form, whatever that looks like for individuals out there listening, that's how you're happy. Like
yes,
that
right,
other person completes you, and therefore you're happy, and therefore now you can have children.
right,
But that isn't the norm. And also, I think we can both say that you look at relationships all around you, and sometimes on the outside, yes, they might appear happy, but on the inside, there's a lot more there to it, right?
right. Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And I look at it now as all part of my journey and
Yeah.
learning more about myself and learning like what I need and what is
Mhm.
makes me happy. I look back on it now and I was perfectly happy with just me and my son. And I think I just felt that outside pressure from society, from how our families grew up, and what other people think you should have, when I should have just relied on what I think I need, and I didn't, unfortunately. But I think it's all
Pressures.
a
Mhm.
growing process and something that we were here to learn about.
It is so true how the pressures of the society around us that make us feel a certain way as though we haven't hit a goalpost or we haven't hit a milestone or because we're not married by the time that we're 25 that we've missed the mark and maybe there's something wrong with us. It's all the pressures from around us that really cause anxiety and then it starts to feel like depression and everything else, but maybe that's not what is best for us. Maybe it is really just taking our time and establishing our careers later in life like we did.
Mhm.
I went and did all the things first before I had my son at 39 and I think that that's okay, right? We can
Right,
break the norm
right.
and change it because it is not meant for everybody to fit into that mold.
No, it fits for some people and it fits for
Yeah.
a lot of people, but then other people, it doesn't. And I think you have to take into
Mhm.
every single person's individuality and what their
Yeah.
strengths and weaknesses are, and the things that they're surrounded by that make their life happy one, or a good one, or one that they're proud of, and one that they actually enjoy and like. It comes in all shapes and sizes, as they say.
Exactly. And so you trusting in another person led you to a marriage that we have briefly talked about. So tell us a little bit more about how you got to that point where, okay, you open up, you trusted somebody into your son's life, which I can imagine is very difficult as a mom to allow a man into your child's life. That alone is really hard to open up and allow somebody in, but then somebody into your heart as well.
Right.
So walk us through when you were like, yeah, this is the person I want to marry, and
Yeah,
all the
well,
things.
back then, I think the only dating site or one of the few was Match.com. So I
Or
thought,
eHarmony. Yeah.
yeah, I thought, well, let's try it. So I met him through that. He lived in the same area where I live, and my son was only about 4, and he had 2 children that were older. They were probably like 13 and 15, and so we started dating, and for about a year, and then my son took to him, and he shared custody of his children with his ex-wife, so we saw them, half the time or not very often, but we thought it was, a match, and
Yeah.
we really loved each other,
Not
and
a play on the website where you met each other, right?
right. And so I wish I had looked back, and wish at the time I had said, well, maybe let's just live together. But then I thought I didn't want to set that kind of example but now it's like I told my son who's older now, I said, you live with that person first. You do that first before you do anything, because I think I
You
would
don't know who
have
you're living with.
I know I would have made a different decision. But when you're only seeing somebody on date nights, or maybe for a weekend, you don't really live it and
Right.
understand it as well. All the things came together, and it did not work out very well at all.
Yeah.
So we ended up getting a divorce after 8 years.
Which
Um,
8 years is a long time to be
yeah.
committed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My son was about 13 when we divorced, and it was hard. It was hard for him. He had grown close to, my ex. He had ended up adopting him.
Oh.
So he adopted him a couple years after we had been married. So they keep in touch. They don't see each other often. He still lives here in town. My father, I would have to say, has been more of a father to him than any other person. He has been to every single soccer event. Went to all his games. When he was on his travel team, traveled to all the places that he played, and then he went to all his college games. He hardly missed anything.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
Oh,
yeah.
that's so sweet.
Yeah, very.
And you say your dad's how old again?
He's 89.
He's still going.
He's
He's
still
like, I'm
going.
gonna be there no matter what.
Right. So because my son just graduated in 2024, and my father was going still to every game. Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that's so sweet.
Yeah.
And so through all of that, you realize that, you know what? It's better to just be on my own, right?
Yes.
You
I
had the
can.
clarity
Yeah.
through the marriage that you're like, you know what? It's better to
Right.
just do this on my own.
The nice thing is that my son was born in 2000, so he's always the age of whatever year it is. And
Yeah.
so I know for a fact in 2013, when we did get, my ex and I got divorced, and then I was on my own, I still sometimes felt like I should be dating and still find somebody. But then after a while, in the last probably 5 to 7 years, I was like, I am so happy just being on my own.
Right.
I have close friends from work. I have my family. My younger sister, who is still lives here in town, is my best friend. And it's so, so nice. And my parents are still here. My brother is my other sibling that lives in New York, and he comes and visits very often. And we're a very close family. Unfortunately, my older sister, who was only 17 months older, passed away in September from
Oh, so
cancer.
sorry.
And yeah, so it was sad at the time, but we were very fortunate that our family was together. We were very supportive of her. My younger sister was able to be with her almost the whole time of her 3 year battle. I was still working, so she couldn't be with her as much. But we are a very close family, and I feel very fortunate. And those are all the things that I need. I don't need a partner. I had him on my own, and even though I was married for 8 years, I still raised him on my own. I did a great job. He's turned out very well. He's got a good job, and he's coaching soccer, and he's a good boy.
Looking back on the last 25, almost 26 years, what was the most challenging phases of being a single mom by choice?
uh, I find the youngest years when they're like your son's age is really hard, especially because we have to work as
Hmm.
the sole income. I always felt bad that I missed stuff. Um, I felt bad that I missed a lot of firsts, whether it was walking, whether it
Yeah.
was talking. And I just I feel like raising a child, especially in today's world, that is so important. If I could have been independently wealthy and stayed at home, I would have loved that, because that's my one regret, is that
Yeah.
I wasn't there for everything. And then there were times when he had soccer and I couldn't go because of work or whatever, and he would have to go with a teammate or get a ride with other families. I
Mhm.
hated that. Absolutely hated that. And because I wanted to be there for everything and I didn't want to
Yeah.
miss anything. I didn't have as much trouble. He's always been very good as far as discipline and as far as behavior. I didn't really have any issues with him as far as that's concerned. He was always very good in school. He was very respectful of all adults and things like that. I just hated not being there for everything.
It is one of the biggest challenges of being a sole provider is that you really don't have an option. You don't have a backup
Right.
plan. We have to work, but it is very difficult to be the sole provider. And I always say, if I could just win the lottery. However, you have to play the lottery to win the lottery. And
Right.
so therefore I'm already like in a deficit. Um
Exactly. I know. I always say that too. My parents have helped a lot and they've been generous, and then they've
That's so
also
sweet.
been there physically supportive and everything. And then I worried about, because he did want to go to college, he did want to play soccer. He was realistic enough about his talents as far as soccer that he says, Mom, I know that I can go to a D1 school, I can be on the team. He goes, but I would probably sit on the bench. And when you go to the D3 schools, there's no scholarships. You end up having to pay for most of the stuff yourself. And most of the D3 schools are private. So
Yeah.
their tuition and room and board end up being $50,000 and $60,000. And so I said, but I want you to play. I want you to do what I was able to do. And I said, so he chose a D3 school. It was close by, luckily, about 45 minutes from Richmond. And he did play. And
Yeah.
but I had to pay for it myself. And we had some help from the school, but not in any athletic scholarship. And we're doing it. We're making it work. And it was a great
You're
experience
making
for
it.
him. Yeah,
Yeah.
and he loved it.
And
His coach loved him. He was captain for 2 years, and he had a great experience. And that's all I wanted for him.
you just want them to be happy no
Yeah,
matter what, and you'll
right,
do anything to get them to
right,
that point.
right. Yeah.
How has your entire journey empowered you?
Wow. Um, as an athlete, for a lot of my life, that I, relied on myself, and especially because tennis was an individual sport. It wasn't
Yeah.
like I was on a team and had to depend on other people. It was me. It was all me out there. I had a lot of strength and belief in myself as far as that carried over into going back to school to become a nurse, doing that on my own, and then having my son on my own. I've done a lot.
Wow.
I knew that I could depend on myself because of the athletic training and how successful I had been on the tennis court, that I could do these things if I wanted to. And I was determined. I was determined to become a mother. I'm so glad that I stuck through it. I feel very fortunate because I know that there are a lot of women out there that can't and that suffer through fertility and still don't get what they want. And at such a older age that I was able to do it because it didn't look good in the beginning. And I went through about 2 years, started seeing my regular OB, and he says, I'm going to have to turn you over to a fertility specialist. And so I went and saw the fertility specialist. He did say, I think I need to do a laparoscopic surgery just to explore and see if there's anything else going on. I don't want you to spend all this money and there's something in you that's keeping you from getting pregnant. I did have a little bit of endometriosis, which he fixed. And then that was when he said, I think we can start trying to, because it's so expensive, as you know, I would take off a month, I would try for a month, and then I finally went into him back in 1999 in October, and I remember this specifically, and I said, I think this might be my last try. I had started looking into adopting because I wasn't succeeding in getting pregnant. And he says, okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to change donors. So he had me change donors because sometimes, unfortunately, women can be allergic to certain sperm and you don't even know it until. So I changed donors, and then that's when I got pregnant.
You're not the first person I've heard say that. So many people have tried like 5, 6 rounds or more.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're like, maybe if I just change clinics or maybe if I just change donors, and it almost always is the donor.
Yeah.
Not saying that sometimes it isn't the clinic,
Yeah.
because trust me, I've had my experiences with clinics, but yeah, sometimes it is just the
Yeah.
donor and they're not compatible, just like dating, right? You're just
Right.
not compatible. In the 2 years that you tried, how many IUI rounds did you do?
I would say with my regular OB, I did, before he turned me over to the fertility person, I think I tried probably 4 or 5 times. And then when I changed over to the fertility specialist, he put me on Clomid, and I tried like 2 or 3 times before he did the surgery to see if I had endometriosis. And then after that, I tried 3 times, and then the 4th time with him, that's when he had me change the donors, and then that's when I got pregnant.
So you were very invested. I
Yes.
think I counted over 11 times there.
Yes. And
Yeah,
and it's expensive, and
it
fortunately
is.
my fertility, and I'm not saying this to be bragging, my fertility specialist, when my younger sister who I'm close to, her mother-in-law is a midwife, and I was using her, and she says, let me go with you to the fertility specialist. So she went with me, and I walked into his office, and we sat down, and he looked at my name, and he says, are you the tennis player? So he knew who I was because he was a tennis player, and he followed me as I grew up and
Oh,
knew
wow.
all about my tennis. So he was very nice, and he was very generous. Some women who end up getting pregnant and then they don't use all their medications, they donate them back to him. So he would give me medication that I didn't have to pay for that had been donated back by other women who had become pregnant already.
That's
So
really nice.
that's very nice. And then there was one other thing I wanted to say. The California Cryobank allows you to go on their website and find other moms that use the same donors that might have children, so you can connect with different siblings.
Yeah.
And I did that. And back in 2007, 2008, my son was 7 or 8. I did that. Back then, we did have cell phones by then.
It wasn't the prehistoric
Yeah,
years at that
I
point.
connected with one of the women that we had emailed each other, and she says, well, do you mind? Let's do a phone call. So we were
Yeah.
talking. She lived in Arizona, and we were finding out about each other. And she goes, "Well, did you have a boy or girl?" And I said, "I had a son." And she says, "I did too." I said, "Well, how old is he?" And come to find out, her and her son was born on the same day as my son, the same year. So they're the exact same age, and they have the same birthday.
Stop.
Yes,
That's so crazy.
it's crazy. So we got to know each other, and we keep in touch, and especially on every year on their birthdays, we will talk to each other. We have never met each other in person, but I follow them on social media, and we will connect and text each other, and we're hoping one day to go out and meet them.
It's almost like they're twins, but like
Yes.
from different parents,
Yeah.
different different
We
states.
always say
Wow.
brothers from another mother because they have the same donor.
Yeah, right. Do they look alike at
No,
all?
that's the funny thing is that the probably the her son has dark hair and more like the Italian looking.
Yeah,
And
where yours has the red hair and the blue
right,
eyes.
right, yeah. But they keep in
That's
touch,
too
and
funny.
they follow each other on social media as well.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
so that
so
was kind of
sweet.
fun.
Through these conversations, not that Lindsay and I have the same donor because we've never talked about that, but our sons were born a year apart on the same day at the exact same time,
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
10:46
That
p.m.
was the first
Yeah.
thing when I told my son about him before he got to know him. He goes, "Well, Mom, what time was he born?" My son was born at like five something in the evening. And I said, "Well, he wasn't born until like 11 o'clock at night." He goes, "Well, that means I'm older."
It makes all the difference.
Right, right, right.
What advice would you give to any of the listeners out there who are new to being a single mom by choice or who are considering it?
Oh, do it. Do it. It's the best thing I've ever done. And I said, like, as the girl that connected us together on TikTok, the one that's a consultant, I never regret it at all because being a mom and being a parent is one of the best things that you can do. It's one of the hardest things you can do, but it's
Mhm.
so, so satisfying. And not only satisfying, but it gives you so much joy. It teaches you about yourself. It teaches you what you can and what you can't do. You learn by your mistakes. Parenting is you've never done it before until you do it, and it's
Right.
kind of like you fly by the seat of your pants, and you do things that maybe you shouldn't have, or like I wish I'd done different. But and a lot of times you parent how you were parented. So I had the greatest role
Yeah.
models in the world. When my siblings and I talk about it, especially this past year when my sister died, we feel like we won the lottery with our parents. They have been married 67 years
Wow, which is
together.
so unheard of
No,
nowadays.
I know. And they are just they are spectacular, and they set the values in us that we have. And I feel like I love how I was parented. We had great childhoods, and I was able to hopefully, besides the divorce, give that to my son because and teach him respect, teach him manners. I'm always like, did you say yes, sir? Or did you say yes, ma'am? Did you stand up when an adult walked into the room and everything? Because that's the old fashioned way I grew up, and I wanted him to learn that as well. And my
Right.
parents instilled that in us. So I just say, do it because, I mean, you can't wait around forever for a partner. And then it's like you don't want to miss out on the chance. And unfortunately for women, there is a window, and we get restricted on, it's not like men where you can have a child at 60 some years old or whatever. So,
So true.
yeah,
Yeah. They have all the time in the world, whereas
right,
we
right.
unfortunately do not have that on our side. I have a few other questions. How or when, I guess, did you start telling your son about his story
Uh,
of being a donor conceived child?
well, I mean, if you want to count it, I started talking about it to him when he was inside me. Right from day one, I've always been very open and very honest about it. I wanted him to know that I did this and that it was very important to me, and that he was going to be very, very loved and special no matter what. That we,
Mhm.
that I was going to give him as much love that accounted for 10 people. I didn't care. And that I just wanted him to know the truth. I would never want, like, because sometimes people back in the day used to keep adoptions from the people that were adopted and they wouldn't tell them and everything, but I wanted him to know right from the beginning. And because my son has a serious girlfriend now, and I told her about I saw her at my mom's 88th birthday was last week, and we all met for dinner, and I told her name is Pam. It's short for Pembroke. And I said, you don't know if Bogue told you, because I'm not sure how much he's told her. Did my son tell you how he was conceived? And she said yes. And I said, okay, yeah, I was glad, because sometimes he doesn't really blurt that out or tell people. I'm more open about it than he is.
As he was growing up, since he's not outwardly honest about it, how did he sort of navigate the questions from friends and classmates about who his dad was or where his dad was? Because that comes up so much, right?
Yeah, luckily for him, when he started traveling and playing soccer and going to school, I had married the father that adopted him. I had married. So kids, when they're young, especially boys, they don't ask a lot of questions, like
That's
whereas
true.
girls are more gossipy and will, want to know
We
more
still are at our
details.
older
Yeah.
age.
But
Yeah.
the other boys, luckily around him, they saw that he had a dad in, my husband at the time. And so they just kind of leave it as it is, and Bogue would never bring it up. And
Yeah.
that's his prerogative, and I respect him for that. And that's up to him, especially now that he's an adult. He can handle it however he wants to handle it.
Is there anything that you would like to say to Bogue? If he were to hear this, which I'm sure based off of your prior comment that he will.
That he's the best thing I ever did.
Yeah.
The absolute best thing. Yeah. I get choked up talking about it, but I
know the feeling.
I would hate to have gone through not this life with not being a mom, because it gives me the greatest joy. And he is the sweetest boy, and he cares for me, and he's always watching out for me. And secretly, I prayed every night for a boy. I didn't know what I was having, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God, if I have a girl, she's gonna come out all prissy, and I'm a big athlete and everything. And I'm like, I'm not gonna, and girls are more expensive. I said, please let me have a boy. And then somebody was listening because he came out. I was so excited.
And they say the relationship with a mom and her son is just, you can't explain it. You can't put it into words. It's
Yeah,
just, it's so meaningful. And I'm assuming you would say that about Bogue, is like the relationship of the mother-son bonding is just like
right. Yeah.
indescribable.
Mother and son,
Yeah.
yeah, there's something special about that. Yeah,
I know. I
definitely.
can't wait for Weston to grow and continue to have that bond with him, because you're making me tear up over here too, just hearing you talk about it.
You learn a lot about yourself doing it on your own, and that you can't do it on your own a lot, that it takes a village. I wouldn't have been able to do it without my family. At the time when he was young, both my sisters were here, and they were able to help me take care of him, keep him overnight when I was working. And they were, and then I also went mostly to my younger sister, because I saw her more, because she was a stay-at-home mom, and I would ask her for her advice and see how she was with her kids. And her children became more of my son's posse, kind of like, because they were closer in age to her kids, and they did a lot of things together. And so that he looks more at them as his siblings, and that he is very close to. And my younger sister took my son in a lot when I had to work holidays. So he became just one of them, and she treated him just like one of her own children.
I hope that she's listening to that in the background
I
and
hope she is
feels
too. I hope she
just,
appreciates
I
that.
know, I was gonna say, I hope
I'm
she
giving
just
her credit
appreciates
more.
that.
I'm giving her credit. She deserves much more credit than that. That's for sure, though.
So, as you look at your life, to wrap this up, from Wimbledon to nursing to raising your own son, what feels like a common thread throughout all of those chapters in your life?
Oh, a common thread would probably be self-resilience, and you definitely always need a village. In all the things that I did in my life, I needed a village. As far as tennis growing up and my family sacrificing so much for me to be able to do that. And then nursing school. Nursing school was hard, having to go back at an older age and then trying to pursue that. And then having my son. I couldn't have done it without my family and everything that they helped me with. And not necessarily the physicalness of taking care of him, but their influence on, how he's turned out and how much they've supported him. All the relatives, all the cousins, everybody came to his games, supported him, and helped in ways that I would never have been able to do it by myself.
And that has to mean a lot to you, but also him
Yeah.
as well.
Yes.
Yeah, because he has that village around him.
Yeah, and the fact that we all live here now, because my younger sister, they were in Dallas for a long time and then they moved back, and that he's able to connect back up with his cousins and they all live here. So it's absolutely wonderful.
And if you could summarize your life in a title, what would it be?
Ugh. And a title? Oh, I don't know. Jeez, that's a tough question. I don't
You
know.
can always get back to me.
This is something where it's like I always thought about things, and I always think that a title was I did it my way.
There we go.
Yeah,
Okay.
because
I like that
it's
one.
always been different from the
Mhm.
norm. Growing up playing my tennis, I couldn't do a lot of things that my peers could do. I had to miss stuff just because my tennis was more important to me. Doing that and being successful, and then, becoming a nurse, and then becoming a single mom by choice. I did it the way I wanted to do it. I did it my way, and I've had a good life. I am, very proud of it.
You should
It's
be.
not been easy. I've had my ups and downs on different areas, but I can look back and said I'm very, very happy with how I turned out and how my son has turned out. Yeah.
Kathleen, it has been amazing to finally get to talk to you.
Oh,
So
thank you.
thank you for your time.
You're
And
welcome.
thank you to your family listening in the background.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
You have a good one.
Okay, bye-bye.
Kathleen's story takes us back to a time when becoming a single mom by choice required enormous faith, persistence, and far fewer resources than exist today. From donor catalogs arriving in the mail to the fully digital world families navigate nowadays, her journey reflects just how much things have changed over the last 26 years. At the center of it all, Bogue, the person that Kathleen says is the best thing that has ever happened to her. Hearing her talk about his drive, his talent on the soccer field, and the strong family surrounding him makes it very clear how much love and support have shaped his entire life. To Kathleen, thank you for sharing your story with us with such honesty, humor, and perspective. And thank you to our listeners for joining us for another conversation about creating families in ways that are personal, intentional, and deeply meaningful. Thank you for trusting us with your hopes and your hearts, and for embracing both the beauty and the chaos alongside each and every one of us. Until next time, here on Choosing Chaos.